Happy Sunday, everyone. Welcome back to another video. My name is Tawanda, and I'm the Migraine Crafting Diva. And on this channel, I do decorating on a budget, DIYs, and hauls with a sprinkle of migraine enlightenment. And today's migraine fact is, 2013 study focused on targeted neck cooling for migraines found that icing at the onset of the headache significantly reduced the intensity of pain after 30 minutes, making it a viable and effective option, per the Hawaii Journal of Medicine and Public Health. And that is today's migraine fact. And the items that I showed you earlier are items that I will be using to do my DIYs for today. I would just like to note that I did not use everything. So we're going to go ahead and get started with today's DIYs. I will be doing 5 quick and easy thrift flips. And we're going to go ahead and get started with DIY number 1. So for DIY number 2, for DIY number 1, I have this dough bowl, and I am going to use some of the Krylon chalkboard black paint, and I have some 220 and some 80 grit sandpaper, and I also am going to use the Waverly Antique Wax. So I'm going to start off by sanding down the dough bowl. And then I'm going to apply 3 coats of the black chalk paint. I'm going to sand in between coats just so that I'll have a smooth finish. And then I'm going to turn it over to the front side, and I'm going to give it 2 coats of the Waverly Antique Wax. So when I did the first coat of the Waverly Antique Wax, I actually mixed the Waverly Antique Wax with some water, and it was a little too light. And then I went ahead and did a second coat to make it a little bit darker, because I originally wanted to just do a clear coat on the front of the dough bowl, but because it had some water damage, I had to use the Waverly Antique Wax just to darken it up because it didn't look right. And so after I finished with the Waverly Antique Wax and the dough bowl was completely dry, I went ahead and I applied a coat of the Rust-Oleum matte clear enamel. And I just want to apologize. When I was when I was applying the Waverly Antique Wax to the front of the dough bowl, I actually thought I was recording, and I was not. So you only got the end result, but it still turned out nice. I think it did anyway. And I must say, I am so excited for you to see these DIYs. I just can't wait for you to see the finished product. Let me know what you think in the comments. So we're going to go ahead and move on to DIY number 2, which is going to be really quick and easy. I have a cast iron recipe holder or book holder that I'm going to put in my kitchen. Actually, I'm going to put all these DIY items in my kitchen. And here I'm going to just show you that it has some rust. So I'm going to just give it 3 coats of the Rust-Oleum flat paint and primer, and then I'm going to give it a clear coat of the matte clear enamel finish. And that's going to be it. That's going to be it for this DIY. Like I said, it's going to be really quick, easy, and simple. Let me know what you think. So we're going to move on to DIY number 3, which is also another. This is a cup holder, and I am going to just do the same thing that I did with the book holder. Give it 3 coats of the Rust-Oleum flat paint and primer, and give it a clear coat of the matte clear enamel. And that's going to be it for this DIY. So we're going to go ahead and move on to DIY number 4. Here I have some lace that I purchased from the thrift store down the street from my house. I paid $1 for it. I have some more fabric that I'm going to use, that tan fabric. I believe I paid 50 cents for that a couple of years, I think it was last year, from the same thrift shop. I have some Loctite spray adhesive, my glue gun, and I also have some of the cluster stuff, and some a eucalyptus pick, and I'm going to call it a berry pick. I'm not really sure what it's called, but I got it from Joann's. I think I've had it for probably like 3 or 4 years now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and cut my fabric to size, and I basically just eyeballed my fabric when I cut it. I didn't measure anything. I just eyeballed it, cut it, and went with it. So I'm going to use the Loctite spray adhesive, and I'm going to spray it onto the fabric, the tan fabric, and then I'm going to go ahead and attach the lace to the fabric, and then I'm going to go ahead and spray the back of it and fold it over so that it gives it a nice little a seam at the top. And I'm going to go ahead and just cut off the excess lace and then kind of just try and straighten it up just a little bit. And then once I have that done, I'm going to go ahead and cut it into a triangle. And you can cut this however you want. And actually, if you're going to do this project, you can also use whatever fabrics you want. You don't have to use the same ones that I use. You can use any color. You can just use whatever is going to match your decor in your home. I kind of wanted to go with some neutral colors because in my kitchen, I have been gradually switching things out and to black. I mean, I've had some black things in there, but I've been gradually switching more of it out to black because I wanted to do a darker wall in my home, but I just figured I would just do an accent instead with like my decor instead of painting one of my walls a darker color. So here I am just using my hot glue gun to go ahead and attach the seams for the carrot. And if you notice, I put the lace side on the inside so that when I flip it inside out, it'll have a nice seam instead of having like the frayed edges. And I also let it sit for a while before I flipped it inside out. So here I'm just gonna just show you me flipping it inside out. And also I did use my scissors. I would probably suggest not doing that, but I didn't really feel like getting up to go get a pencil or go get a pen or something else that wouldn't damage it. But it worked out just fine. But see here, you can see I have a clean seam. So now I'm going to go ahead and stuff it with some of the cluster stuff. And this was given to me by one of my old co-workers before she moved back to Michigan. So I didn't really have to pay for much for this DIY. The lace cost me $1, and then that fabric cost me 50 cents. And the eucalyptus pick and the berry pick I already had. So basically, it's costing me cents to make these these carrots. So I'm going to go ahead and just tear off a couple pieces of this berry pick and a couple pieces of the eucalyptus pick. And I'm going to go ahead and stuff the eucalyptus and the berry picks into the carrot, the top of the carrot. And I also cut a couple pieces of the lace. And I'm going to just use that to tie around the carrot to close it. I didn't want to hot glue anything. I just wanted to just use the lace. So I took two pieces of it, two little thin pieces, and I just tied it around the carrot. And I also made 3 of these total. So once I had the carrot complete, I went ahead and I'm going to go ahead and just show you the other 2 that I made also. And then I used the extra fabric that I had left over from when I cut the triangle out. And I just cut strips of it. So you can see here. And I'm going to take 2 strips and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to glue those together. And then I'm going to wrap those around all 3 carrots. And then I'm going to take the tan fabric and I'm going to cut a strip of that. I'm going to just make a little shoestring bow, and I'm going to go ahead and attach that to the fabric, the fabric that I wrapped around all 3 of the carrots. And then once I have that done, that is going to be it for this DIY. Like I said, these DIYs are going to be quick, easy, and simple. And you probably have some leftover fabric or leftover lace or anything that you can just use to make these carrots if you, for, you know, probably next to nothing. So once I have these done, that's going to be it. I'm going to go ahead and move on to DIY number 5, our last and final DIY for today. Yeah, we're going to go ahead and get started. Oh, and with the shoestring bow, I am just going to fray the edges just a little bit because I didn't want it to be so perfect. I want it to be a little bit rustic. But yeah. And I'm going to put these DIYs, all of these DIYs in my kitchen. I kind of just wanted to go with neutral colors. So yeah, here we go. We're going to move on to DIY number 5. So moving right along to DIY number 5, our last and final DIY for today. I have some white chalk paint. I have my paint brushes, some water, and my sanding block. And I'm showing you here this little jar with all of these utensils and those scrub things. I actually purchased all of that for $3 at my local thrift store down the street from my house. And I also have some rice paper here. I believe I purchased that. I want to say I got that off of Amazon, and I believe it was on sale. I think I paid maybe $6 or $7 for it, and it is so cute. And I can't wait to use the rice paper. And then I'm also going to use some of the Pen Trade decoupage varnish and glue to use on the rice paper. So this is going to be my first time using rice paper. I usually just use napkins or scrapbooking paper. So yeah, this is going to be my first time, so it's going to be interesting. So I will let you know what I've learned and tips and tricks that you should use that where I messed up. So here I'm just going to go ahead and take my white chalk paint, and I'm just going to go ahead and just paint the areas where I'm going to place the rice paper. So my first mistake was, is when I put this rice paper on the first utensil here, I didn't have my camera on. So yeah, that was my first mistake. But my other mistake was here where I am putting the water onto the rice paper. I just went ahead and just started to tear it instead of waiting. So if you automatically start to tear the rice paper once you put the water on it, as you can see there, you're going to have those little frayed edges. You see that there? So I would suggest that when you use the rice paper that you wait a couple minutes so that the water sinks in, so that you won't have all of those frayed edges like I did. Because what you're going to have to do is once it's completely dry, you're going to have to use some sandpaper to sand those off, unless you like that look. I didn't really want the look of the little tattered edges from the rice paper. I wanted it to be clean because I wanted the rice paper to kind of just fit into the areas where I painted so that it would blend in, but that didn't happen. So basically what I had to do was, after I placed the rice paper onto all of my utensils, I had to wait for it to dry, and then I had to go back and sand those areas to make it to not have all of those frayed edges, so that it was to make it have a cleaner look to it. So once I finished with the spoon, I let it dry. And then I went ahead and moved on to the fork, and I just used the pieces from the 2 bunny pieces of rice paper. I just used those extra pieces, and I applied those, or adhered those to the fork. And then what I had left over from the fork, I went ahead and added those extra little pieces back onto the spoons. And I would also like to say that I'm using this pen trade decoupage varnish and glue to apply the rice paper to my utensils, and I actually did not like using that. I actually prefer to use the Mod Podge or the tacky glue. So after it dried, and I sanded it. Usually if I sand with Mod Podge, it doesn't the paper doesn't kind of, the tissue or the or the scrapbooking paper doesn't like peel up, but with the decoupage varnish and glue, my paper did peel up, so I had to go back over everything with Mod Podge, and then that actually worked better for me. So I think I'm just gonna use regular old Mod Podge. I'll just stick with what I know best when using the rice paper, but at least I've learned from this experience, and I just hope that what I've learned I can share with you all, and that you will not make the same mistakes that I made when using rice paper, or if you use the pen trade decoupage varnish and glue, or maybe you may be able to give me some tips on how to use it correctly where that won't happen for me. So once I have everything completely done and it's dry, I went back, and like I said, I sanded everything, and then I went back and then I added the Mod Podge, and then that was it for this DIY. Like I said, they were all quick, easy, and simple, very cost effective. I really didn't spend that much money on these DIYs. I would probably say that maybe I spent a total of like $5 maybe on all of my DIYs, because everything that I had was basically, well, maybe not $5. Let me take that back. Probably less than $10, because most of the items that I purchased were really cheap. The items that I purchased from the Habitat, if you saw my last video, that was my thrift video, and most of these items that I'm using are from that thrift video, and they actually did not cost that much. So I'm thinking that I probably spent around $10 total for all of my DIYs that I did today. So yeah, that is going to be it for my DIYs. I hope you liked them. These were a lot of them, actually, I think most of them or all of them were my favorite, and they're all going to go in my kitchen. I'm so happy to have these complete, and I can't wait to start decorating. And that is going to be it for today's video. I would like to thank you for spending your Sunday with me. And if you like what I am doing, please like, share, and subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it. And like I always say, be nicer, be kinder. God will love you for it. And I hope you have a blessed day. And I will see you next Sunday. Goodbye.